Joining us now, Dr. Alan Diehl, NTSB investigator and author of the new book, Air Safety Investigators, Using Science to Save Lives One Crash at a Time. Al, we thank you for your time today, and as you assess things, Skyping in from New Mexico, how difficult do you think it's going to be to find the airliner's black boxes?
Well, it could be very challenging. Obviously, the weather is not cooperating, and some of the bodies, as you know, JD, have been located over 100 miles from the last known reported point on radar of the aircraft. And there's another issue here we can go into about how the aircraft may have broken up in flight.
And what do you think happened?
Well, early on, they reported that two of the bodies were naked. What that tells us is that there was likely, and of course I'm speculating here, but
right.
It's almost certain that there was an in-flight breakup. Naked bodies, what happens when people are ejected at very high speeds, they lose their clothes. Now here's the issue, and this is what those air safety investigators will be doing. They'll be working with the medical examiners and the seating chart to find out just where those people were located. If they're towards the tail of the aircraft, we may have a bigger problem because the tail is where those two critical black boxes are located.
But this water is relatively shallow, is it not?
That's correct. But if the tail separated from the rest of the main wreckage, and of course we know that it was in the middle of a thunderstorm, tail structure is fairly lightweight. It can travel for miles, conceivably. It might even be on land. I'm not suggesting that that's where it's at. And of course, if it is on land, you're not going to find the underwater pingers. But I'm sure the Indonesians are aware of this, and I expect they're looking in a very wide area with some very good equipment in the water, but they probably also need to think about the possibility that it's on dry land.
Al, you made mention of the fact about weather, about severe thunderstorms, and again, we are essentially dealing with speculation now. There was some concern, of course, in this day and age, you have a terror concern, but in your mind, is it, what, 99% certain it was a weather-related accident?
Well, JD, of course, good air safety investigators let the evidence dictate where you go. Obviously, they'll look at everything, including terrorism and mechanical failure and weather and human error. They have to look at everything. But, from the initial reports, it sounds like this is, the weather is certainly something that's probably involved with this some way. It may have caused systems on the aircraft to fail, and we know from that Air France crash in '09, the pilots misinterpreted the data. JD, there's another accident that's very similar to this that occurred last July, and it was an Air Algiers accident in North Africa. Flew into a thunderstorm last July, and it was an Air Algiers accident in North Africa. Flew into a thunderstorm. It was not an Airbus, but weather and thunderstorms in particular are very treacherous, and you can lose an aircraft if you get into a thunderstorm and can't maneuver around. And those African pilots, the Air Algiers pilots, had already told the controllers they are turning around and coming back, but they didn't make it.
Al, in your experience, how concerned are you about Indonesia and air travel there? Because let's be honest, they've seen a huge boom in the last few years, and European authorities have placed basically a blacklist on Indonesia when it comes to flying into European countries. So are you concerned at all that Indonesia is not equipped to handle the growth that it's endured?
About 30 seconds left, Al.
Thanks. Short answer is yes. You probably saw the New York Times. Thanks. Short answer is yes. You probably saw the New York Times is when we deregulated the airlines in this country. A lot of new airlines, new equipment, new pilots, new controllers. The risk is up there, but I think they're trying to address it in a appropriate way.
Dr. Alan Diehl, we very much appreciate your insights and analysis. Do come back and join us as events warrant. Dr. Alan Diehl, the NTSB investigator and the author of the book, Air Safety Investigators, Using Science to Save Lives One Crash at a Time. Speaking of science, former chairman of the House Science Committee, Bob Walker, coming up next.